Hello and welcome to SciFi MineCart. I've always had a fascination with films that cross genres. This is one of the many reasons I enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe so much, and their ability to cross the superhero genre with other genres such as space opera and heist films. And I believe it's because of this fascination with movies that cross genres that I enjoyed today's movie as much as I did. Phantom from Space is a 1953 independent sci-fi film. However, more importantly, what it feels like is a 1953 independent sci-fi film that is, in fact, a film noir detective movie and monster movie mashup. Now, before I get into this comparison, I do admit fully, to begin with, that I'm not an expert in film noir or monster movies. However, I have watched and enjoyed my fair share of both of them. So I do apologize in advance if I miss any of the subtlety of the two genres. But let's get on with it. In particular, the film noir film that Phantom from Space reminded me of most strongly is He Walked by Night. Both films contain a group of detectives trying to hunt down an elusive foe. Now, this is of course something that's not unique to He Walked by Night. I've just chosen to concentrate on He Walked by Night because it was the film that I thought of while watching the movie, and because if I tried to tackle every single film that had that sort of setup, we'd be here all night. Both of the films are presented as if they're almost documentaries, with there being a narrator giving you inside and background information about the progression of the story and giving you a candid look at the inner workings of the police force as they try to hunt down their foe.
Here in communications are the ears and voice of the police. The lights on the complaint board flash 24 hours a day.
By 8:25 at the Los Angeles branch of the Communications Commission, reports of strong interference with radio and television reception began to pour in.
It's clear that some of these shared elements are very much on purpose, as while watching Phantom from Space, you can see that they're clearly drawing on inspiration of old film noir detective films in the way that the police officers talk and act. And the comparison is helped along further because He Walked by Night was filmed in 1948 and Phantom from Space was filmed in 1953. This means that without even needing to try, the characters in both films dress very similar and drive very similar vehicles because it simply was what was available at the time. It's only at the very start of the film that the narrator actually tells us about the extraterrestrial element of the movie, and for the next 25 minutes in The Phantom from Space, we don't actually see the alien at all. During this period, we're instead treated to two police officers who are trying to track down a strange disruption which is interrupting radio and TV signals. While they're doing so, they encounter a murder case in which a man has been murdered, a woman has been knocked unconscious, and their only witness, who quickly becomes their suspect, is claiming that a strange man in a diver suit did the assault. However, as their investigation continues, the woman wakes up and corroborates the story, and further, more people come forward claiming that they saw the strange man in the diver suit. Understandably, the police are incredibly incredulous to the idea of a man running around in a diver suit assaulting and murdering people. However, they follow the investigation regardless. And that's really one of the most important things about this film and why it works so well. While many independent, low-budget sci-fi films would have taken the easy route in this area, had the police stumble across reports of a strange man running around, instantly go, oh, it's probably related to the strange sightings in the sky we saw earlier, and immediately treat it like an alien threat, they treat it like police would actually treat it. For much of the first half of the film, they don't even consider the possibility of aliens. They don't think about linking it to the strange things in the sky, because why would you? And further, they dismiss any reports of supernatural elements as being all in the minds of the victims. In Phantom from Space, all the detectives care about is cold hard evidence, and even when it starts to look like it's linked to something that's quite out of their depth, they immediately consult scientists and the military because they recognize it is in fact out of their depth. Because the way the detectives in this film so perfectly imitated film noir style detectives, the film feels like it's almost a film noir movie where they've just happened to cross over in the Twilight Zone and encountered something that just does not fit in their genre. The something that doesn't belong is of course the Phantom from Space, a creature of likes you would probably never see in an actual film noir movie. Throughout the first half of the movie, he plays the role as the simple criminal. He's hunted down by the detectives and he's the subject of a manhunt. However, as the movie continues, he takes on an entirely new role. He becomes that of a classic monster in a classic monster movie. All we hear about him in the first 25 minutes of the movie is vague descriptions of him. A man walking around in what appears to be a diver's outfit. And as the film goes on, our first reveal of him is actually in the form of a police sketch. We quickly find out that he's capable of murder, and so we're quick to assess him as a dangerous threat. In this sense, he already shares many elements of a monster in a classic monster movie. His reveal is kept under wraps for a while, with us only hearing of him from word of mouth, and he's a killer. But the similarities don't end there. As the manhunt begins to close in on the Phantom, he's forced to abandon his suit, taking advantage of the invisible nature of his body to escape. At this point, shedding the suit that's been used to describe him in connections with the murder symbolically removes him from the status of being a monster. You're probably thinking, Grim, does it really? Does it really have symbolism? Did the director mean that to be symbolism? Well, I have no idea, but it does make sense, and it does sound good. And whether it was intentional or not, it is in fact the case, because after losing the suit, the monster becomes vulnerable. The monster, you see, needs the suit to live. He needs it to breathe, and without it, he starts to die. The investigation also starts to clear him from being a monster, with them finding that he's not an invader, but instead a crash lander. Earth was not where he intended to be. He crash landed, and therefore is not playing the role of an invader, but playing the role as a lost creature. And of course, in doing so, his character is continuing to follow the classic role of a misunderstood monster character, not unlike giants of the genre like King Kong. However, as the detectives of the film are following the roles of film noir detectives, rather than assuming his rampage is malicious and hunting him to death, they start to realize that he probably doesn't have violent intentions, and instead just being forced to violence because he's in a strange area he doesn't understand and he's dying without his suit. They start planning to set up a trap to catch him, but little do they know, he's actually already there, having hitched a ride back in one of the police cars. We get another strong link to the monster movie genre as the Phantom seems to develop an interest in the female character. He attempts unsuccessful communication with the woman, further cementing his role as a misunderstood monster, and what follows is a chase scene ending in his tragic end. All of these elements are extremely generic to a monster movie film, and they're pretty much what makes it part of the genre. And if this is all the movie was, it wouldn't really be much of a movie to watch at all, because you might as well watch a better monster movie like King Kong or the creature from the Black Lagoon. However, what makes it refreshingly different and interesting is, as I said in the beginning, the fact that it's a cross-genre film. While the Phantom in Phantom from Space behaves exactly as you would expect him to in a monster movie, the detectives do not behave as you would expect them to in a monster movie. They, as I've said, behave as film noir detectives. And thanks to this, the encounter between the norm and the monster, which is pretty generic in all monster films, feels refreshing and different. This abnormal crossover is perhaps best represented by the actual ending of the film, where the Phantom dies. He is being chased, but he's not being chased by people that are being malicious. They are just trying to help him, but the monster doesn't understand this. And the monster dies, not because he's killed by the chasers, but because he's not able to get a hold of the elements that will allow him to survive. The chasers who would have given the monster these elements if they had them at their disposal do not celebrate the monster's death, but mourn in his loss, having taken no part in it. And while the end of the movie is perhaps not as exciting as an action-packed gun shootout would have been, it is bittersweet and does fit with the overall feel of the film. Overall, The Phantom from Space really does feel like it's a cross between a film noir detective movie, a monster movie, and a B-grade independent sci-fi film. So if you're a fan of any of these genres, it's definitely worth checking out. The film is by no means completely perfect. There are some serious pacing issues, and the monster looks like the kind of monster you can afford if you have a low budget. However, to give it credit, some of the scenes where things are moving around while he's invisible look fantastic, and when you actually see the monster at the end of the film without his suit on, he does actually look pretty terrifying. As with all things, enjoyment is entirely subjective, and if you've watched any B-grade sci-fi films, you pretty much know what they're like. And if you enjoy what they're like, I do suggest you go and watch The Phantom from Space. Thanks for watching. I have been and still am Grim Grindle.
Hello, I am Grin Grimsley, and welcome to the very first episode of my video game review show. This should be quite interesting, as I've never actually played video games before. This was, you see,